So what is RAW and JPEG images for photographers? What does it mean? What's the difference? I'm going to be going through that in this video. So RAW is basically an uncompressed image file that comes straight from your camera. That means that it's either from a Canon, Nikon, Olympus, whatever camera you have, it has a RAW format. And the difference is that it's basically uncompressed data, and it has all your data that you took during that moment in the image instead of having a compressed file like JPEG. I'm going to be going through some of the benefits, some of the disadvantages, and what I prefer to use, and that will give you a sense on whether you should choose to shoot JPEG or RAW. RAW formats are a uncompressed image file type that you can use in an editor, and such as Lightroom or Photoshop or Luminar or Capture One, editing software like that. So one of the advantages of shooting RAW over JPEG is you have control when editing your photos. So with JPEG, it's a lot harder because there's a lot less data in the image to actually extract and change, like the highlights, the exposure, some of the shadows. And it can be done, but it's not going to look as clean as a RAW photo would look. And you can go back, and the RAW image, you can edit the highlights, you can edit shadow, you can edit the temperature, all these different things in a RAW photo because they're a lot larger than the JPEG. RAW photos give you a lot of different abilities that you can edit with, and especially as we move forward to different softwares like Luminar AI and software that does AI like neural filters in Photoshop, it's going to be even more useful to use RAW photos when you're editing photos and distorting them. Another advantage of shooting RAW is that you can always go back to those images, and say you want to edit an image from a couple months ago, you can always do that. You can always go back to the original RAW photo, and you can export a different file and then another file that looks completely different, and they won't destruct the original image like JPEG would. Another advantage of shooting RAW is that you can make sharp prints. So all the prints behind me I shot in RAW, and you can blow them up a lot better, and there's just a lot more that you can do with the RAW format. Some of the disadvantages of shooting RAW is large file sizes. So usually the JPEG images are around 18 bytes and some of the RAW formats are around 16 bytes. So that's a lot more memory to have, and you're going to need a faster card when you're shooting. Once you shoot RAW, you may need to upgrade your SD card so that it can shoot faster burst rates, and your camera might have a set burst rate for shooting in RAW images, and that may affect how many shots you get during say a family shoot, a sports shoot, or a wildlife shoot where you need to have fast burst rate to get every single moment. And that's something to keep in mind. So you may switch off between just JPEG and shooting RAW depending on what you're shooting. Another disadvantage is that it's going to take a little bit of time for you to upload them to your computer because there's so much and so big, and also import them to Lightroom or your editor and actually edit them. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It's going to take a lot more time than your JPEG images if you're not normally editing your JPEG images. So which one do I prefer, and which one should you choose? So I'm a portrait photographer and commercial photographer, and I prefer shooting RAW almost all the time. The only reason that I would use JPEG is to upload something really quick to social media. I've done that before where I just need a simple photo, a photo of coffee or something that I'm doing, and I just need it uploaded really quick to the computer. But today, a lot of cameras actually have Bluetooth so that you can send RAW photos to your phone and you can edit them on the fly. So I would definitely suggest using RAW and trying it out. And it depending on what you're doing really matters, and you also need to make sure that you have enough memory, enough space, and you're kind of looking into the future to buying more hard drive space. For example, I have about 6 gigabytes between my Mac and my PC, and that holds most of my photos right now until I start taking more photos and keeping all those RAW files. I don't keep all my RAW files. RAW files that aren't useful I don't keep, but for the most part I keep most of my RAW files. Let me know in the comments down below what kind of image format you're using right now and which one you would like to switch into. And if you have any more questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.